Hello and welcome to USA Today's The Excerpt. I'm Dana Taylor. Health and wellness trends can be found on every social platform, but what happens when the pursuit of a particular body type morphs into harmful content and risky or even life-threatening behavior? Across social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, it's easy to find content from creators who push excessive weight loss goals and promote an unhealthy obsession with eating only certain types of foods. What previously trended as thinspo, short for thin inspiration, gave way to SkinnyTok. This June, TikTok banned the SkinnyTok hashtag, but social media giants are still struggling to keep up with the pervasiveness of unsafe weight loss content. Here to discuss the persistent trend of potentially dangerous body image mythology on social media is USA Today wellness reporter Alyssa Goldberg. Alyssa, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to dive into this issue with you.
Can you draw the line for us between aspirational wellness, a desire to look and feel healthy, and outright disordered behavior?
So, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look and feel healthy. I think for most of us, that's a very normal aspiration to have. We're thinking of ways that we can feel our best and maybe look our best, regardless of what that means to each individual person. When disordered eating creeps in, or just body dysmorphia, it is more so characterized by an obsession with maybe what you're eating, what you look like. And, right now we also have trends with biohacking where people are just trying to do whatever it takes to be the best, quote unquote, best possible version of themselves. But when that becomes an obsession, if it keeps you from regular activities like going out to eat with your friends, or if you're missing out on social interactions to spend more time in the gym, or maybe making big expensive purchases to follow a wellness trend, that's where maybe it kind of starts to teeter into the disordered realm of things.
Alyssa, you wrote about a content creator who's emerged as a leader of the skinny talk trend. Her content centers on cultivating an extremely restrictive diet. Should social media platforms hold creators accountable when they promote disordered eating?
Social media is so vast that it is difficult to keep an eye on every creator and especially every piece of content. So I do cut social media platforms a little bit of slack there, but I do think these platforms have a responsibility to maintain safe platforms, especially when you have teens and kids on the app. And we know that there are tools that can be used to flag specific words or flag content that might be upsetting for younger viewers. So TikTok did ban Liv Schmidt, the creator that you're talking about, and the SkinnyTok hashtag. And we were told by a TikTok spokesperson that the platform does age restrict content that might be idealizing certain body types or promoting potentially harmful weight management. So that's to age restricted to 18 plus. However, we've seen this before on platforms like Tumblr, Instagram, and Pinterest, which banned the hashtag thinspo, which was essentially the same thing, sharing inspiration on how to be skinnier in 2012. But users found loopholes around this to allow eating disorder content to flourish, whether it be just avoiding that particular word or misspelling the word to allow people to still be able to find that content.
Who is this unrealistic weight loss content for? Their specific groups being targeted here?
So it's hard to say if anyone specifically is being targeted by the creators of the content. However, according to a 2022 study from the University of Vermont, the most widely viewed food, nutrition, and weight content on TikTok are videos that perpetuate diet culture among teens and young adults. So they are, based on some studies, receiving the brunt of this content.
Both disordered eating and eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia, among others, can have serious physical and emotional consequences. What are the risks when targeted goals aren't reached?
So, just to start, sometimes the greatest risk is when those goals are reached. And something important with anorexia, particularly, is, people might have a goal weight that they're aspiring for, but you might also see that goal weight get lower and lower as they hit that goal because it can be a bit of like a competitive illness, unfortunately, where you are always looking to achieve that next goal. And I think, though, however, when those goals aren't reached, you might end up with body dysmorphia and maybe feelings of shame or guilt because you are working so hard in your mind and you're not getting the physique that you want to achieve. And you're wondering what you're not doing that they're doing. And it can be very harmful on the body, mind, spirit.
Another current trend is gym bros culture and the rise of orthorexia. First, what are the hallmarks of orthorexia and why is it troublesome?
Orthorexia is an obsession with clean, healthy eating that causes a person to experience guilt and shame if they stray away from a rigid diet. So, some of the unhealthy behaviors associated with this include only eating safe foods, and that can vary by person to person, weighing food for weight loss, or over exercising to the point of injury. Also, when your rigid diet or exercise routine interferes with social interactions and impacts your mood and behaviors. Orthorexia, however, often takes a backseat to anorexia and bulimia when we talk about eating disorders, despite that orthorexia actually shares a lot of the same physical consequences as anorexia. So this could be malnutrition, heart failure, inattentiveness, lowered sex hormones and sex drive, kidney failure, and even death. Anorexia has one of the highest death rates out of all mental illnesses because of the severe physical consequences. But it's not surprising that orthorexia doesn't get the same attention as anorexia because we still have diagnoses like atypical anorexia, which essentially is the same thing as regular anorexia, quote unquote regular, but it was when a patient doesn't fall within an unhealthy weight, which is kind of another example to me of how society tells you to be thin, but not too thin. So people in bigger bodies are praised sometimes for losing weight, even if they are using unhealthy behaviors that people don't know about, and they don't get the same concern as those who develop an eating disorder when they're already in a smaller body. And likewise with gym bros, they're praised for their discipline, their physique, regardless of what they actually did to get it. And however, orthorexia is actually not in the DSM-5, but many mental health and eating disorder experts, including the National Eating Disorder Association, recognize orthorexia as a legit disorder. And the term has been around since 1997. So it's not nothing new. It just doesn't get that same care and attention as, the more known eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia.
And what is DSM 5?
Diagnostic Statistics Manual. It's basically what is used and recommended by the APA for a diagnostic guideline for psychiatrists, psychologists to use if you're going through per se insurances as well to get treatment. There's codes based on diagnoses that are recognized in the DSM-5.
We would be remiss not to bring up the unintended impact of weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. Last October, there was a thin as in piece in the Washington Post, which noted that the American Society of Plastic Surgeons is calling the current coveted ultra thin body type the ballet body. What are the lessons here from similar trends, particularly the popularity of 1990s heroin chic?
Yeah, and I'd like to even go to a more recent era than the 90s with what we often call 2014 Tumblr. And, gym bros, Ozempic transformation posts. It's all very eerily similar to the eating disorders that populated Tumblr in the early 2010s. But with things like gym bros, rather than aspiring for thigh gaps, men are looking to bodybuilders online for inspiration. And in this Ozempic era that we're in, I see videos on TikTok of people who can't finish their plate while out for dinner with friends, and they almost seem to be bragging about it or acting like they're part of this elusive club of, people that we're all on Ozempic and we're all not finishing dinner and we have leftovers for days. And, I've even seen videos using the girl dinner audio on TikTok, which has been a trend in recent years to show these like measly meals made from snacks. And it's meant to be very cutesy, but honestly, I see people just glorifying bite-sized meals and glorifying undereating. And I think what we're seeing too right now is for a while we had this trend to, turn towards body positivity or body neutrality. And it was not as accepted to outwardly express your desire to be thin, which was, more common on, with 90s heroin chic, with 2014 Tumblr and the rise of thinspo. And now it feels like with, the SkinnyTok, the skinny influencer, it's becoming more normalized again to be able to, show this desire for thinness and go to extreme measures to get there. And not to Ozempic shame because, it has a lot of health benefits and a lot of people are really seeing improvements in their health by being able to have access to this drug.
I want to circle back to the social media giants and what they're doing to identify and crack down on this content. We've gone from thinspo to SkinnyTok. Should platforms tag content and content creators that promote disordered eating? What are your thoughts about solutions here?
I 100% believe that social media should be taking responsibility for the content that is on their platforms and should be having practices in place to ensure that people have information, correct information around eating and nutrition, and that disordered eating content isn't as widely accessible. And to be clear there, I don't mean content that where people are speaking openly about their experiences with disordered eating or body dysmorphia, or where people are talking about their recovery journey, because I think, those stories are stories that 100% deserve to be heard and are really important to people who are currently struggling, because stories of hope inspire hope and allow people to move through crises of their own. But I think that, TikTok is doing some things to try to limit this content. It can be very easy to get sucked into content that might be harmful if you're engaging with it more. But when I spoke to a spokesperson from TikTok, they said that they do have tools in place on their platform to interrupt repeating video content. So you wouldn't be, if you've already looked at 4 body image related videos on your in your searches or on your For You page, it'll break it up and give you a different video so that you're not getting completely sucked down a rabbit hole. And now that they've banned SkinnyTok, if you search SkinnyTok on their search bar, no videos will show up, and you'll be instead led to resources for eating disorders and body image. So, they are doing, I commend those efforts to be able to crack down on this content. I think there's more work to do. And I think a lot of that comes from the way that we talk about it and just spreading awareness that, these extreme behaviors are not what you need to be doing to live a healthy life and to feel good in your body and in your skin. And I think the more that we have those conversations, the more that those creators will lose traction, regardless of what the social media platforms themselves are doing to curtail that content.
Finally, as we discussed, eating disorders are potentially life-threatening. Is there a helpline or online resource for anyone grappling with an eating disorder?
There's the National Eating Disorder Association. There's also national lines for anorexia, and places like 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, are there to talk you through any type of crisis, whatever you might be struggling. Same thing with the crisis text line. They're available 24/7 via text to support texters. And a lot of, being able to grapple with feelings around eating disorder related content is having tools within yourself as well to be able to reject that content. Lizzie Pope, the University of Vermont professor who did a study on this TikTok content, said, working on the ability to reject this content is an important aspect of making sure toxic diet culture doesn't permeate your mental health, and recommended seeking professional support through therapists and dietitians if unhealthy thoughts persist. So bottom line, there's many resources out there. If you're going through this, you are not alone. And, never feel ashamed or embarrassed to reach out for help, because, you deserve that care.
Alyssa, thank you so much for being on the excerpt.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching. I'm Dana Taylor. I'll see you next time.